Change your heart, change your life, change the planet.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Van Orden coming to you from the Bald Mountain Trail in Bennington, Vermont. I'm slogging in my boots through the snow, and this has been a really interesting morning so far, and I thought I would share my process with you and make another getting started video, because this was a tough day to get started on. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I was in the midst of a dream last night. And I looked in a mirror and saw a figure of a girl with her back to me who wasn't in the room. She was only in the mirror. And then she moved out of the room. Clearly, in the dream, a ghost. And I went into a terror, a panic, and ran out of the room, which of course in a dream, there's no logic to where you are, and found myself in a hallway with an attic door opened that nobody ever opens, and there was all this stuff coming out of it, and clearly that's where the ghost must have come from. And then her presence was right there, and it went from bad to worse, and I was just in a state of sheer terror inside of this simulated world, my dream. And I woke up, and my cognitive identity, the Tim making this video right now, doesn't believe in ghosts. So the man awake in bed with his heart racing and his body gripped in fear, clinging to the mattress, consciously, I knew there was no ghost, and I knew it was a dream. But my body was still in that state of terror, as if it were in the room with me. So then the little green LED on my computer, charging the battery, was illuminating the room just enough to see faint shadows and shapes around me. And of course, that part of me that does believe in ghosts, my cognitive unconscious, it's looking for shapes. And I noticed that my hand is hanging off the edge of the mattress, and suddenly that part of my brain creates the image of a hand grabbing my hand and pulling me out of the bed. So I quickly yanked my hand back and then laughed, because I know there's no such thing as ghosts. So anyway, this was a really interesting experiment for me, because my eyes were so tired and I just wanted to go back to sleep. But as I shut my eyes and tried to calm myself, I had the realization that because my physiology is still full of the hormones of terror and is still modeling terror or threats, and has therefore engaged certain parts of the brain that look for threats and mobilize for fight or flight, my sympathetic nervous system. Since I'm still physiologically in that state, and it's going to take a while for these hormones and other neurotransmitters to leave my system, if I go back to sleep, my brain is going to model a similar terrifying situation. And I didn't want to go back there. So I laid in bed, eventually opened up the laptop and put on a lecture from Stanford University about neuroscience, and listened to that half in and out until I finally went back to sleep after my physiology had changed, after I went back into a calm state and the hormones were out of my system. So that's how it all started. When I finally did wake up this morning, I was exhausted. That dream and the experience after really put me through the ringer, and I was probably awake for an hour or more in the middle of the night, just really, really needing to go back to sleep. Took me a while to come back in to sleep. So when I got up this morning, I just didn't have the energy, the will, or the motivation to do anything at all. But I know that staying in that state is only going to make things worse. It's not as if I can lay there and rest and recoup and then go bounce out into the day refreshed. It doesn't work like that. I would lay there and ruminate, and things would just build, and all kinds of fun narratives would develop in my head, and then I'd be more disempowered. And I know this from dealing with depression, how staying in bed is the worst possible thing you can do, even though it's the only thing you think you can do. So I got up slowly, got myself into town to my studio, did some work, very, very slowly, but I noticed a tension and anxiety in me, and it was really strong, and I would have to stop every few minutes and just calm myself and touch something sensually, just even if it was the laptop, the Apple aluminum case that they spent so much time making beautiful, and just to really get present to it and touch it and feel the smoothness. And then maybe the pants that I was wearing, I remember doing that and breathing and telling myself, it's okay. It's okay. So as all this is happening, I'm thinking about something called the James Lange Theory of emotion. And William James and Carl Lang, both in the late 1800s, came up with a very similar theory of emotion, independently of each other. And one of the things that still holds for that theory is that there are these feedback loops. And the premise of the James Lange Theory of emotion is that it's not that you see a stimulus, you're then afraid of the stimulus, and then your body produces the fight, flight, freeze response, or the love, lust, etc. It's the opposite. You see or perceive the stimulus, the physiology changes in your body, and then your cognitive unconscious and cognitive consciousness together realize that, oh, the physiological experience that I'm having right now must be fear, or it must be excitement, perhaps, or it must be anger. That we wake up to the physiological changes, and then we come up with an emotional label or experience to make sense of them. Inside of these feedback loops, interesting things can happen. One being that if you consciously resolve something, whether it's a dream and you wake up and say, it's okay, it's just a dream, and then you try to go back to sleep, even though you consciously, intellectually eased that situation, your physiology is still in a threat response. And this is something that happens a lot with arguments, couples. You have a fight about something, and then one person apologizes. They say, you're right, I'm wrong, I shouldn't have done that, it was a bad thing to do, I'm sorry. Okay, we've intellectually moved past that moment, but there was a bear track. Speaking of bear, there's another one. See if I can, no, I can't, I'm gonna fall. Can't do it in selfie mode. Anyways, bear tracks on the trail. Okay, so you've apologized, you've intellectually moved through it, but your partner, who was upset with you because of what you did, their physiology is still in that state of however they're describing it, but it could be betrayal, it could be anger, it could be fear, it could be anxiety, like it's a strong physiological experience that they're still having. So this cognitive unconscious says, wait a minute, yes, we solved that problem, but I'm still feeling this. So there's probably still a threat somewhere, because it's the feelings that give rise to the emotions. Our brain tries to explain the feelings in our body. And so in that state, it's like, okay, there must be something more. It couldn't have just been that, because if it was, I'd be feeling better now, but I'm not. without realizing that you're not feeling better because there's a half-life to stress hormones and neurotransmitters, and they don't just immediately leave the system because you have come to an intellectual understanding of something. You're still hijacked. Like me in bed last night. Okay, there's no ghosts, it was just a dream. Doesn't matter. My body is still in terror mode. So it's going to keep looking for ghosts. It's going to keep looking for threats. And this is where people get into trouble. And this is where I got into trouble today, trying to get myself out the door to do this. Or couples get into trouble because the person who's still aroused, not sexually, they're going to keep digging. They're going to keep looking. They're going to keep pushing. They're going to keep jabbing. And that's going to cause their partner to get defensive. And, hey, I apologize. What do you want me to do? And the fight keeps going. So the hormones and transmitters stay in their system. And the fight escalates. It doesn't stop. It's never allowed to calm down. Because people that don't or haven't studied psychology or neuroscience don't know about these feedback loops, and that emotions are really interpretations of physical experiences. So for me today, when I was at the studio working, knowing that I needed to get outside and slog up a mountain, I had this huge resistance to it because of that response in me, and my cognitive unconscious was feeding me the messages that it's the run that's doing that to me. It's the anticipation of the run that's making me feel that way. And so it kept trying to talk me out of going out here. It tried to justify not getting outside because there was nothing in my environment that was stressing me out. So it tried to tell me it must be the thing that I'm about to do. That's got to be where the danger is. Rather than saying, oh, this is old anxiety. These are old feelings. This is a leftover from something that happened last night that I kind of woke up into this morning, and I haven't been able to step outside of it yet. So it's still kind of triggered. And what a lot of people do in these states in the morning, they're tired, they're exhausted, they're maybe waking up stressed. They don't know how they're going to face the day and go to work. So what do? They drink coffee or tea, caffeine. And I'm not saying this is a bad or negative thing to do, but you have to understand that coffee is a stimulant, or perhaps better described as an adjutant. It agitates you. So it's going to increase heart rate. It's going to increase the physiological symptoms of anxiety and threat. So if you're already in that threatened state, if you're already in that challenged state, the caffeine is going to amp up that physiology. And now your cognitive brain is going to try to find a reason that you feel that way. It's going to create an emotion to describe and justify that experience. And, well, maybe it's this run that I'm supposed to do. I shouldn't do it. I think it's a really bad idea. So I found myself in that space of having this anxiety, having the physiological symptoms, and my brain mapping that onto the run. When I caught that, again, intellectually understanding what's going on, but still in that physical state, I said, okay, let's just allow that state to exist in me right now. And yet, let's take tiny, slow steps to get dressed and have as much sensuality as we can. Let's take our time feeling the shoelaces as we tie them, or the socks that I put on. I have 2 pair of socks on, and I probably spent 1.5 minutes per sock, just really tuning and being mindful and creating some sensuality in there to change the physiology. But these hormones can last for a while. So when I got to the trailhead, I had zero desire to get out of the car. Zero. And I said, okay, that's fine. We'll just get out there and take a few steps. And there was a voice in my head, a model of me that was saying, I really don't think you can do this run. I don't think you're physically capable of doing this. It's too much. You can't. Your body is in no state to do this. So I got out, I took a few steps across the parking lot, and really I had zero faith in my ability to get up the mountain. But again, I know what's happening. So I let myself take some steps, I let myself walk, I let myself tune in to my surroundings, and it really, it took maybe half a mile before I started having faith that this is something that I could do and something that I could feel good in. And now I'm on my way back down the mountain, probably a little more than a mile from the car. I've got a good slog in, and physiologically I'm in a very different state. The hormones have cleared my system. The narratives are no longer popping up, and I'm capable of doing whatever I want or need to do for the rest of the day. But this is a really fascinating thing to tune into. And to understand these James Lange feedback loops and how they will trigger you to map an explanation onto something that may not deserve it. And a big part of my process is catching that and then teasing away from it, or teasing one aspect of me away from the other aspects, creating a little bit of space. Or as Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Well, I would modify that a little bit and say, between stimulus and response, there is a physiological reaction. And just after that physiological reaction, there is a moment where you can say, okay, I can feel what my body is trying to do right now. Okay, I can see that it's loading a threat program because of this. Let's pause for a moment and not immediately look for an explanation for those feelings. Maybe it's this stimulus, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's unrelated. So let's just create some space there and just be with our physiology, be in the state. Okay, there's terror in me right now. Let me be with terror. Let me not map that onto anything. And just wait, engage yourself until your physiology changes, and be very gentle in that process. Don't force yourself to run up a mountain. Take tiny, 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 gentle steps and allow yourself to say you can't do it. And just take the smallest step possible. And your brain will tell you, I can't do it. That's okay. I'm just going to take one more tiny step. And things will change. Emotions are quite certain, or at least the experience that we have in the midst of emotion is all about certainty. But when you step outside of emotion, certainty isn't as, it's not as valuable a currency. When people fight, they're usually certain of things. When people are having a discussion that's not emotionally engaged, you'll hear them say, I don't know more, or could you tell me more, or there's more curiosity and more of an attempt at understanding. But emotions kind of narrow our focus like a laser beam, and we become so much more certain. So spend some time widening the angle of your perspective and allowing for more possibility, and that includes being in the physical state you're in until it changes. Okay, I hope there's some value in that long ramble for you. I'm gonna go back to the studio and do some more work, and maybe hop on the elliptical machine, and then maybe come out here again. All right, I'll see you soon.